In episode 4 of Nisei Monogatari, it's discovered that Tsubasa Hanekawa, the class president among class presidents, has cut her hair and taken off her glasses. And while I wouldn't be surprised if anyone was a bit disappointed because Hanekawa is now less hot, myself included, change in the Monogatari series is something of a novelty, given how the format shifts so often that every entry has a different episode count and length. So even seemingly ordinary adjustments can mean a lot more than Nisei seen playing into his fetishes, like girls with short hair, which isn't necessarily wrong, but I think you get the point. Now, one would normally assume, because they've seen way too much anime, that Hanekawa changed her look to represent a change in herself, because traditionally a haircut symbolizes a big alteration in a character's life. In many ways, it works similarly in the Monogatari series. After the climax of Karen B, the next time we see Senjugahara, her hair is cut really short. Tsuruga's hair grows throughout the show until she comes to terms with herself in Hana Monogatari, in which she then lets Araragi cut her hair back to the length it was when they first met. In Hanekawa's case, it's a bit more complicated, mainly because Hanekawa is more concerned about her appearance than probably just about any other character in the show. For example, at the end of Kizu Monogatari, Hanekawa dons the iconic two-braided look that she is so well known by. Though honestly, the change is so innocuous, I wouldn't blame anyone for not noticing the subtle difference in design on a first viewing. But what's key to understanding the change is understanding what Hanekawa has been trying to do throughout the films. While Hanekawa is consistently altruistic throughout the series, in Kizu she is almost too good. Almost like she's trying really hard to look good. By that logic, the adoption of the twin braids is her attempt to fully manifest the platonic ideal of a class president that she has made herself out to be, especially considering her actions in the final Kizu Monogatari film. Hanekawa's emphasis on performance and not on legitimate improvement is something that is consistently criticized of her in Neko Monogatari Shiro. Up to that point, criticism could be avoided because she garnered the respect of Oshino, Skihi, and Karen, and was basically worshipped by Araragi and Senjugahara. Eventually, her unwillingness to accept her own weaknesses and limitations as a person led to the creation of the Hysteria Tiger, an entity that could seriously harm the people she cares about. Hanekawa falls into the trap a lot of intelligent people do, where they become hyper-aware of what is right and wrong, so they act very self-righteous and pretend their needs and flaws don't exist to reassert their virtuous nature, usually to their detriment. Hanekawa self-admits to playing into the role of the perfect class president because Araragi likes it, but couldn't bring herself to tell him of her feelings because that would entail a serious demand of the world. And demanding things makes you selfish and entitled, as well as opening yourself up to pain that you probably don't think you can emotionally handle on top of your already difficult home life. With that in mind, Hanekawa's behavior can be easily understood. When growing up in a household in which for years your needs were completely disregarded and your existence was invalidated, you would assume that in order to get friends and recognition, you would have to basically be perfect in every way. Much like Senjugahara in middle school, Hanekawa was compensating for her bad home life in studies and extracurriculars. The difference being that Hitagi's efforts were a form of escapism, whereas Hanekawa does it because she's trying to survive, because she thinks that's all she can do to get any form of validation, and if she doesn't, then people won't like her anymore. The situation with Araragi was a cycle where her own flaws as a person trying to be virtuous prevented her from getting something out of life that could make her truly happy. In a sense, Hanekawa's greatest strength is also her greatest weakness. Eventually, when Hanekawa is willing to accept that she has her own desires and flaws, does she then have the ability to absorb the Hysteria Tiger and become a more realized individual, a person of black and white. Which is what Nisei is trying to say about human behavior, that even the best of us are human beings, and to put others or even your own self on a pedestal can be extremely destructive. Being good should be done because it's good, not because you look good. And Hanekawa seemed to have gotten the message because she continued to dye her hair black until her trip around the world, in which she no longer needed to be concerned about whether or not she was pretentiously displaying her character development. So why does Hanekawa cut her hair in Nisei Monogatari? Because she thought she had significantly changed after the events of Tsubasa Cat, and she wanted to let herself and most importantly Araragi know that she was a different person. Unfortunately, the change wasn't as definitive as she initially hoped. But that's something that everyone can take from Hanekawa. Performance is not real, and if you spend all your time acting, you're eventually going to get tired. And sometimes you cool off in extremely unhealthy ways. So the goal is to be virtuous because you want to be, and to improve because there's something you want to be better at. and admitting that you want something out of life takes both self-respect and humility, because you need to understand that you are not perfect and that you deserve more than what life gives you. Hanekawa finally comes down from her saintly pedestal in Tsubasa Tiger. At last, her arc is over, because in a way, she is free. Thank you very much for watching the first non-Eva video I've completed in over 2 years. If you enjoyed it, then leave a like. Subscribe and hit the bell to know when my next video comes out. As well, I do post when I upload on my Twitter, so follow me if you wish to know. That and my Patreon will be in the description below. Leave a comment on whether or not you thought my analysis of Hanekawa was at least halfway competent. I've had a brainworm like this for months now, and I would love to know what people think. Thank you again for watching, and take care.